True brotherhood begins when we recognize the humanity in those we've been taught to fear. For generations, we have been conditioned to see one another through the cracked and clouded lens of suspicion, prejudice, and misunderstanding. We have been told, directly or silently, to be cautious of those who do not speak our language, worship our God, share our skin, or walk our streets. We have been taught to draw lines, to build walls, to whisper rumors, and to tighten our grip on the illusion of separation. But in the quiet depths of our souls, a deeper truth echoes, a truth that transcends history's lies and society's fears. That truth is the unshakable fact that we are one, crafted by the same hands of creation, breathing the same air, longing for the same dignity, aching for the same peace. Fear has been a cruel teacher. It taught us to build neighborhoods where sameness is comfort and difference is danger. It taught us to look away when a stranger falls, to lock our doors tighter when a foreign voice is heard outside, to remain silent when injustice visits someone not of our tribe. Yet fear is only a shadow that flees the light of understanding, and it is understanding, born of courage and compassion, that helps us see what fear has long hidden from our sight, that behind every face, regardless of shade or shape, is a soul worthy of love, worthy of justice, worthy of being called brother or sister. When we take the time to truly see one another, to listen not just with our ears but with our hearts, we begin to unravel the knots that division has tied. We start to see that the mother in a distant land mourns her child the same way our mothers do, that the laughter of a child, no matter the country or color, carries the same innocence, that the pain of oppression, whether it wears the face of racial injustice, economic cruelty, or political exclusion, leaves the same scars on the human spirit. These recognitions are not signs of weakness, they are signs of strength, for it takes a mighty heart to see beyond fear, to rise above the familiar comfort of stereotypes, and embrace the radical idea that we are kin. Brotherhood is not a matter of sentimentality or poetic dreaming. It is a moral obligation, a spiritual calling, a revolutionary act of resistance against the forces that seek to divide us. It is choosing to care when the world tells us to ignore. It is lifting up those whom others have cast down. It is recognizing that the dignity of one man is bound to the dignity of all men. The recognition of humanity in others begins with humility in ourselves. It means admitting that we do not know all, that we may have been wrong, that the history we inherited may be flawed, and that our vision of the world must be made broader, deeper, more inclusive. Brotherhood calls us not only to tolerance, which merely endures, but to love, which actively embraces. It asks us to go to those who have been cast aside, to eat with those who have been demonized, to walk with those who have been silenced. It demands that we open our homes, our hearts, and our hands. It demands that we remember that every label we place on someone is a chain we place on ourselves. When we choose to live in fear of the other, we imprison our own soul, for freedom cannot exist in isolation. True freedom, true peace, blooms only where brotherhood is rooted, and that brotherhood must be lived out daily, not in grand gestures, but in the small, unseen acts of compassion and courage. It is born in conversation, nurtured in service, and tested in moments when it is easier to turn away than to reach across the chasm. We are not isolated islands. We are bound together by an inescapable network of mutuality. No man walks this earth alone. No woman cries without her tears echoing through the soul of humanity. The illusion of separation has long been the tool of the oppressor and the refuge of the fearful. But truth, enduring and unchanging, reveals that our lives are intertwined like threads in a grand tapestry, where the fate of one is tied to the future of all. In this web of existence, what affects one directly affects all indirectly. There is no suffering that stays confined to one corner of the world, just as there is no act of love that remains without ripples beyond its origin. This network is not merely a poetic image, it is a reality etched into the fabric of our daily lives. The clothes we wear, the food we eat, the ideas we share, the air we breathe, all of these are touched by hands and lives far beyond our immediate reach. When a farmer in one land loses his harvest to a storm, it is not just his livelihood that suffers. A chain is disrupted that eventually touches us all. When a child in a distant nation is denied education, the future of the world is dimmed by one less light that could have shone. Our destinies are not parallel lines. They are converging rivers, constantly feeding one another, constantly shaped by one another. And so, when injustice arises in one part of the human family, it is not enough to say, "It does not concern me." When hate poisons the soul of one nation, its venom does not respect borders. It seeps into the soil of humanity and threatens the health of all. When peace is shattered in one place, the tremors shake the conscience of the world. It is the same with hope. When hope is planted in one heart, it sends forth seeds to many. When a single act of courage is taken, it strengthens the spine of others who watch in silence. That is the power of mutuality. It binds us not only in burden, but also in beauty, not only in struggle, but also in triumph. In this inescapable web, we are not competitors on a battlefield of scarcity. We are companions on a journey toward abundance, not rivals seeking domination, but partners seeking liberation. We do not rise by pushing others down, we rise by lifting others up. We do not thrive by hoarding opportunity, but by sharing it freely. The success of one community should never be purchased by the despair of another. Brotherhood, true and authentic, understands that my well-being is linked to yours, and your suffering diminishes me, whether I acknowledge it or not. To deny this mutuality is to choose blindness. It is to walk through a world of mirrors and believe we are looking at strangers. But when we see clearly, when we understand deeply, we begin to feel that sacred connection that reminds us, there is no them, only us. That realization is the foundation upon which lasting peace can be built. It is the soil in which empathy grows. It is the root of every movement that ever bent the moral arc of the universe toward justice. This truth does not ask for permission to exist. It waits only for the courage to be embraced. In every village and valley, in every city and slum, in every heart that dares to love, this connection lives. It may be buried beneath years of division, but it is not dead. It may be hidden beneath systems of greed and structures of hate, but it is not gone. It waits, it pulses, it breathes with the rhythm of hope. Genuine brotherhood demands that we rise above tolerance and move toward transformative love. Tolerance, while often praised as a virtue, is but the beginning of the journey toward true unity. It allows space for coexistence, but not always for connection. It permits difference, but does not always celebrate it. Tolerance can quietly coexist with distance, indifference, and even silent resentment. But love, transformative, redemptive, revolutionary love, does not merely endure another's presence, it embraces their soul. It does not simply allow others to be, It lifts them up, speaks for them when they are silenced, walks with them when they are weary, and believes in them when the world turns away. Brotherhood cannot be built on the foundation of mere tolerance, for tolerance alone cannot heal centuries of injustice or overcome the walls built by hatred. Only love has that power, love that sees beyond stereotypes. Love that listens before it judges, love that chooses to understand instead of walking away. Genuine brotherhood is not a soft or sentimental thing. It is fierce in its commitment, courageous in its demands, and bold in its action. It challenges us to see our neighbor not just as someone to tolerate, but as someone to honor, someone whose dignity is inseparable from our own, in a world still wounded by division, division of race, of class, of creed. Genuine brotherhood calls us to a higher way. It does not wait for conditions to be perfect. It does not rely on the past to shape the future. It steps forward even when the road is steep, even when history weighs heavy on our backs. Transformative love requires us to forgive without forgetting the lessons we've learned. It requires us to look into the eyes of those once called enemies and see the spark of God shining there. It requires us to dismantle the systems that perpetuate inequality, not because we pity the oppressed, but because we love them too deeply to leave them behind. Brotherhood is not comfortable. It asks us to face truths we may rather avoid. It leads us into conversations that unsettle our assumptions and calls out the prejudices hiding quietly in the corners of our hearts. But it is in this discomfort that growth is born. It is in the fire of transformation that the chains of ignorance and fear are melted, and from those ashes a new society can be shaped, one where justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. To love in the face of hate is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength. To reach across the aisle, across the fence, across the border, requires more courage than any weapon could give. Brotherhood built on transformative love is not passive. It is active, intentional, daily. It is showing up when it is easier to stay home. It is speaking up when silence would protect our reputation. It is standing beside those who suffer even when their pain is not our own. It is holding space for another's story even when that story challenges everything we thought we knew. This kind of brotherhood transcends politics, nationality, and language. It speaks in the universal tongue of humanity. It recognizes that every act of kindness is a thread in the fabric of peace, and every act of justice a cornerstone in the foundation of the beloved community. It knows that we cannot wait for others to lead the way. We must become the way. We must embody the truth we preach, carry the love we proclaim, and live the unity we long to see. No wall of division can stand against the power of hearts united in justice and compassion. Throughout history, walls have been built to separate, to isolate, to control. These walls come in many forms. Some are made of stone and steel, others of laws and language, of hatred and fear. But no matter how high the barrier, how wide the gap, or how long the separation has endured, there is a force greater than division, a force that has toppled empires, crossed oceans, and changed the course of nations. That force is the unbreakable bond of justice joined with compassion, when hearts beat together not in fear or revenge, but in a shared dream of dignity, equality, and peace. It is easy to build walls. It takes only a moment of fear, a single lie, a hardened heart. But to build bridges, to extend a hand, to open a door, that takes courage. That takes a vision rooted in something deeper than tribal loyalty or personal comfort. It takes faith in something unseen, the belief that every human soul, regardless of background or history, is capable of redemption, of change, of love. When hearts are united by justice, they do not seek revenge but restoration. When hearts are softened by compassion, they do not settle for silence. They raise their voices for those who have been voiceless far too long. Every wall that stands between us is a call for courageous love to rise. Whether the wall divides by race, religion, class, or nation, it is never too strong for the human spirit when it is driven by moral conviction. Those who marched barefoot through the dust, those who faced fire hoses and dogs, those who sat in silence while others shouted in hatred, they understood this truth. They knew that true power does not come from wealth or weaponry, but from unity anchored in righteousness, and that unity is not shallow agreement. It is deep solidarity, born from standing with one another in the face of injustice and declaring, "We will not be divided." Justice gives us the clarity to see wrong and name it. Compassion gives us the strength to reach across the lines that divide and extend healing. Together, they are a force the world cannot resist. No law of oppression, no doctrine of exclusion, no custom of cruelty can long endure when the people unite, not in bitterness, but in a burning desire for a better world. A wall may block a road, but it cannot block a movement. It cannot block truth. It cannot block love. When we open our hearts to one another, something begins to shift in the atmosphere. The stereotypes that were once etched in stone begin to crack. The assumptions we inherited begin to unravel. We begin to see faces instead of labels, stories instead of categories, human beings instead of enemies. This is the work of compassion. It teaches us to feel with, to suffer with, to dream with those who do not look like us, speak like us, live like us. And this is the work of justice. It demands we not only feel but act, not only hope but labor until every hand is free to build and every voice is free to sing. Let no one tell you that the walls are too strong. Let no one convince you that division is permanent. Let no one persuade you that the work is too hard. For the pages of history testify that when people are united in love and driven by a thirst for justice, they shake the foundations of power. They bring kings and systems to their knees. They awaken the conscience of nations. The wall may seem immovable, but the heart moved by justice is mightier. The wall may cast a long shadow, but the light of compassion breaks through even the thickest darkness. To build a beloved community, we must replace silence with solidarity and apathy with action. The beloved community is not an abstract ideal or some distant utopia. It is the tangible hope of humanity working together toward justice, peace, and dignity for all. It is the vision of streets where all voices matter, schools where every child is nurtured, neighborhoods where love is not limited by zip code, and nations where policy is rooted in compassion. Yet this community will not emerge through wishful thinking or idle admiration. It must be built, stone by stone, through the hands and hearts of those willing to speak, to stand, and to serve. Silence in the face of injustice is not neutrality, it is consent. It is a quiet agreement with the status quo, a subtle nod to the machinery of oppression. There are times when silence is a balm, when it comforts and consoles, but there are other times, urgent, holy times, when silence is betrayal. When a neighbor is mistreated, when a system crushes the spirit of the poor, when violence becomes routine and bigotry wears the mask of respectability, silence does not preserve peace, it prolongs pain. And apathy, that cousin of silence, is even more dangerous. It deadens the soul. It whispers it's not your problem. It numbs the heart until suffering becomes background noise. But history has shown that no movement was ever born from apathy. No change ever rose from silence. Solidarity is the antidote. Solidarity is not just sympathy or surface-level support. It is a deep, unwavering commitment to walk with others in their struggle, even when the path is rough and the cause is not your own. It is choosing to show up not because you are affected, but because you are connected. It is understanding that injustice anywhere truly is a threat to justice everywhere. When we choose solidarity, we shift the narrative. We stop asking, what will happen to me if I speak out? And instead ask, what will happen to them if I remain silent? That question, that sacred reversal, changes everything. Action is the expression of love that refuses to be quiet. It is the loud heartbeat of the beloved community. It lives in the protest march and the voting booth, in the classroom and the courtroom, in the church pew and the city hall. It lives in moments of courage that will never make headlines but change lives just the same. It is the teacher who refuses to give up on a struggling student, the activist who keeps organizing even when hope feels thin, the neighbor who speaks truth at a family table stained by prejudice. These are not small acts. They are the bricks of the beloved community. We cannot wait for the perfect time or the perfect words. The world cannot afford for us to delay. There is too much suffering, too much injustice, too much despair that thrives on our inaction. We must be willing to raise our voices when it is uncomfortable, to challenge systems that benefit us, to listen when others share their pain, to learn what we do not yet understand. The beloved community will not be handed to us. It will be built by us if we are willing to give more than words, if we are willing to trade comfort for conviction and complacency for courage. Let us not be content to admire the dream from afar. Let us step into the labor of building it, bearing one another's burdens, amplifying silenced voices, planting seeds of hope in places long forgotten. This work is not easy, and it is not quick, but it is sacred. It is the work of generations, the calling of conscience, the legacy we must choose to leave behind. For every act of solidarity we show, every moment of action we take, brings us closer to the day when justice rolls on like a river and love reigns supreme in the hearts of all. The future of our world depends not on weapons or wealth, but on the strength of our brotherhood. We live in a time where power is often measured by missiles and money, where empires are built on economies and guarded by armies. But history has made one truth painfully clear: neither the barrel of a gun nor the glitter of gold can sustain peace, heal wounds, or bring people together. The strength that endures, the strength that uplifts, the strength that changes the course of history, this strength is found in human connection, in the ties that bind hearts across differences, in the moral fabric of brotherhood that declares all lives are sacred, all souls are worthy, and no one stands alone. It is not the size of a nation's arsenal, but the depth of its compassion that determines its greatness. It is not the rise of towers, but the rise of human dignity that signals progress. Our ability to survive and thrive as a global family will not be found in the accumulation of wealth or the expansion of territory, but in our willingness to look into the eyes of another and say, "You matter. I will not abandon you." The challenges we face, poverty, violence, injustice, environmental collapse, are too vast for any one nation to solve, too complex for any single ideology to answer. These are human problems, and they require a human solution rooted in love, justice, and unity. Brotherhood is that solution. It is the recognition that my neighbor's suffering is my suffering, that the tears of a child in one country water the seeds of conscience in another. Brotherhood understands that we rise and fall together, that division leads only to destruction, while unity builds hope brick by brick. In this sacred fellowship, there is no room for supremacy, no space for indifference. Every person becomes a mirror in which we see not only their struggle but our own responsibility. Brotherhood asks more of us. It asks for humility in our success and generosity in our strength. It calls us to use our privilege, our platforms, our power, not to dominate but to lift, to serve, to heal. It is easy to believe that the future will be shaped by those in high places, by those who sit in boardrooms and command armies. But the true builders of the future are the ones who dare to care in quiet corners of the world, the teacher who believes in her student when no one else does, the doctor who serves the poor without expecting praise, the activist who risks everything to make someone else's life a little more free. These are the architects of the beloved future, the guardians of brotherhood, the dreamers who refuse to be hardened by hate or silenced by cynicism. When we invest in each other, not just in profits, but in people, we plant the seeds of peace that no bomb can destroy. When we value human life above market value, when we prioritize justice over comfort, when we choose solidarity over suspicion, we begin to see a different kind of power emerge. A power that cannot be measured by balance sheets or battlefields, but by the number of hearts that beat with hope. This power does not intimidate, it inspires. It does not dominate, it transforms, and it is this power, born of brotherhood, that will shape the future our children inherit. In a world obsessed with borders, this power crosses them. In a culture consumed by competition, this power calls us to collaboration. In a society that often confuses strength with silence, this power dares to speak truth in love. It dares to believe that peace is possible, that justice is achievable, that unity is not a dream deferred, but a reality we can begin building today.